Hello everybody, my name is Thomas Dupont Sr. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my program tonight. We're going to be talking about everything you need to know about insurance coverage, insurance cards. We're going to be talking about some traffic tickets in relationship to insurance coverage, and we are going to talk tonight about auto accidents and your insurance card and coverage. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I go by the name of Tody Dupont Sr. I practice law with my son, Tody Dupont II. We are in the law firm of Dupont and Dupont. We're located in... Okay, now, I want to tell you a little bit about my occupation in the past. I worked for the city of Jersey Village as a municipal court judge for almost 15 years. And during that capacity, I had a lot of training and experience with insurance coverage, insurance law as it related to the traffic courts. Tonight, I want to share some public information with you about our insurance coverage in the state of Texas. So if you want to have some fun, you want to learn something, get some paper and a pen and write down many of the things that I will be talking to you about over the next hour. Look in your wallet right now. Do as I do, please. Take out your insurance card. Take out your insurance card and look at it. Now, one of the first things you want to look on the insurance card for is coverage. Is your coverage valid? You generally will see 6 months worth of coverage. It could run, say, from January 1st, 2008 to the end of June. And then it could run again from July 1st to the end of December. Well, if you don't have valid insurance coverage, you really need to get it, and I'm going to be giving you some information tonight to tell you why. Another thing you want to look on your insurance card is who is the named insured. If you are married, the named insured should state the husband's name and the wife's name. A lot of times insurance agents will only put the husband's name or the wife's name depending on who comes into the office to get the insurance coverage. But under the named insured, it should have everybody's name there, the husband, the wife. Now, make sure you look to the right of the insurance card. Make sure that your insurance card lists all additional drivers, especially the young drivers. You will be surprised. You may have 3 children who are covered on your, or should be covered on your insurance card, and their names are not even on the card. So if they're not on the card, please make a note to call your insurance agent to get everybody who's covered. You might have your mother living with y'all in the house, and she's been there for a long time. You could add your mother as an additional driver. You can add your aunt. You can add your sister. You can add anybody as additional driver to your insurance card. Naturally, there will be some cost involved if they're not a family member. But the most important point I want to make to you right now is to make sure that your children who are driving and lawful to drive, make sure their name is on the insurance card. Now, a lot of times, like when my son was young, I might have had Thomas Dupont as the named insured and Thomas Dupont as the bottom as an additional driver. Well, my agent forgot to put Thomas Dupont II. A lot of times children will have their parents' name. A man might, a boy may have his father's name, and a daughter may have the mother's name. You need to make sure that the name is correct. One of the problems is if the name on the insurance card is not correct, then that person could be brought to court. If that person is under 18 years of age, one of the parents will be notified to come to court concerning a possible insurance citation. Make sure the names of all drivers are on the insurance card. Now, Texas has new insurance limits. It used to be for a very long time that the minimum insurance coverage in the state of Texas was what we call 20 over 40. 20,000 over 40,000. Today, on most new coverages or renewable coverages, I believe that went into effect around April the 1st. The new coverage is what we refer to as 25 over 50. So all people who renew their insurance or who buy new insurance now will be buying 25,000 over 50,000. Now that's very important. You got 5,000 more individual coverage on liability and 5,000 more on total at 50,000 coverage. That's a lot of money. Of course, everybody's going to pay more money for that additional insurance. If your rates went up, look and see, was it because of the insurance coverage increase in the state of Texas? Now this is something new. The next thing I want to talk to you about on the insurance card is there's coverage allowed for personal injury protection or MedPay coverage. We call personal injury protection PIP. You won't see those initials on your insurance card, nor will you see PIP initials in your insurance policy. But you certainly will see the coverage, personal injury protection. Let me talk to you about that. That's serious coverage, it's cheap coverage, and everybody should have personal injury protection coverage. Let me tell you what it pays. It pays dollar for dollar in medical bills according to the language in the insurance code, and in some circumstances according to the language in the insurance policy. And when I say according to the language, they got words in there that say reasonable and necessary medical charges. Well, that's something you deal with at the time of an accident. But personal injury protection coverage is sold in three limits: 2,500, 5,000, and then 10,000. Make sure that you look for PIP. Make sure that you buy personal injury protection. Now let me tell you a little trick about that coverage. A lot of times agents will try to save you money and they will say, sign here. If you sign there, you need to read that form, especially if it's blank. Now, if it's all filled out, that's great. But there are sometimes people say, sign here. If you sign there, you could be rejecting PIP coverage in Texas. Personal injury protection coverage is mandatory in the state of Texas. In other words, they got to offer you the PIP coverage. You can reject it. You should not reject it. It's very cheap. It pays $2,500, and it can pay $5,000, and it can pay $10,000. Again, it's very cheap. Personal injury protection is one of the things that protects the driver and every passenger in the vehicle. Let me explain. For one cost, of buying PIP. If you have a driver and a passenger in the front seat and 3 passengers in the back seat, and all 5 of those, the driver and the 4 passengers, are hurt, each one can get each one can make a claim under personal injury protection up to $2,500. So you got $2,500, $2,500 is 5, another 5 is 10. You got $12,500 coverage for medical bills. Each one would make their own claim. Another thing PIP pays is 80% of the actual lost wage of your salary. Now, the problem is between the PIP and the lost wages, $2,500 goes very quick. So you want to be sure and buy $5,000 and buy $10,000 maximum coverage. Now, another coverage is uninsured motorists. They call it UIM coverage. We have initials for everything in the insurance policy. Uninsured motorist coverage means that if the other driver has no coverage, and it's established there's no liability coverage, then you can make a claim under your own policy under uninsured motorists. Uninsured motorists and PIP is what we call no-fault insurance. I believe we have a call, and I'm going to take a call at this minute. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. I'm glad you're doing this show. I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Here in this state, and most others, I guess, you have to have proof of insurance or proof of financial responsibility, the latter of which is never discussed. And I'm wondering why. Does anyone ever do it? If my memory serves me right, it's like $5,000 or $10,000. You know, who or how do you get it, and what are the pros and cons of it?
Very good question. On the way, I'm going to hang up now.
Thank you.
On the way to the program tonight, I recorded that in my memory that I would talk about proof of financial responsibility. First of all, I think every one of our listeners should know there's a new statewide program that's been created on personal financial responsibility. Now that's a great question, because if you get stopped, one of the first questions the law enforcement people are going to ask you, besides let me see your driver's license, is they're going to ask you, do you have insurance coverage? Now he brought up a great question, and I had a talk this morning with a law enforcement officer, and I said to him, are they going to ask, do you have proof of financial responsibility? Now, I believe personally that a lot of officers will ask you, do you have insurance coverage? It won't be for a while, I believe, that they will start asking first, do you have proof of financial responsibility? And I think it'll be even longer before they ask both questions. Do you have proof of financial responsibility and insurance coverage? Now, please understand there was a case in the state of Texas several years back that the officer who made the stop did not ask the driver if he had proof of financial responsibility. And the ticket that was written said that the driver had no liability insurance. That case went to court and was taken up on appeal, and our appeal court sent back a decision that basically says that you must ask the driver, does he have proof of financial responsibility? There's 6 or 7 ways you can get proof of financial responsibility. Here's one of the bad problems with that phrase, proof of financial responsibility. Because the insurance coverage went up, it used to be that you could show through the Texas Department of Insurance in Austin that you had the financial ability to pay a judgment of $20,000 over $40,000 plus $20,000 for the property damage under the liability coverage. Now you have to show under proof of financial responsibility, if you have the new coverage, you $25,000 over 50 and $25,000 for property damage. So instead of needing 20 over 40 plus 20, you needed 20 over 40 plus 20 is 60. And now you need 25 over 50 plus 25 is $75,000 worth of coverage. But it's a great question. I might take up the case if I ever get stopped and they also ask me, do you have insurance? I might even tell them that's the wrong question to ask. You know, I'll address that issue when it comes. But your caller was right. You need to ask each driver, do you have proof of financial responsibility? You can look on the internet in the transportation code. There's a section dealing with proof of financial responsibility. You will see 6 or 7 ways that you are supposed to ask that question and that the driver is given an opportunity to show proof of financial responsibility. Now, I'm going to continue forward with uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured motorist coverage is cheap. There are really only 2 things that benefit the owner of a Texas insurance policy. One of them is PIP or MedPay, and the other one is uninsured motorist. We call it UIM, UI, uninsured UM, and then the other one is underinsured motorist. They both go together, but they mean separate things, and you don't pay extra costs for that coverage. Now, I want to get back to PIP a minute. I want to try to show you if you had $10,000 worth of PIP coverage. You should call your agent tomorrow and change your coverage on PIP if you have $2,500 to $10,000. You're going to be surprised what the additional cost is. It's not a lot of money in terms for that coverage. Each person in the vehicle would be allowed to collect dollar for dollar on medical, past medical, if it was reasonable and if it was considered to be necessary as a result of the accident. So if you had 5 people in the vehicle times 10,000, that's $50,000 worth of PIP coverage. And it does pay 2 things. It pays medical incurred, and it pays actual lost wage claim if you can document it. Now keep in mind, a lot of people get confused. They think they can get, say, $2,500 PIP coverage and still collect 80% of the actual lost wage. You can only get the amount of money up to the coverage. So if you only got $2,500 and you hurt real bad, and 4 other people in your vehicle are hurt real bad, then they're only going to be able to get $2,500. Now let me tell you why that's significant, and I'm giving you my own view, my interpretation, my experience, my training. If you make a claim for PIP coverage, it is no fault, and if it's no fault accident coverage, then they cannot use the fact that you paid the premium to use the PIP. Here's where problems come in. If an agent has a high loss ratio, now what that means is an insurance agent has a high loss ratio. If he wrote 10 policies and there were claims on 10 policies, and his ratio for that 10 policy was high, well, naturally, that's going to affect how he does business with that insurance company. Now, listen to this. They don't tell you this, and it's not in any of the documents that you can readily read and understand. If you make a PIP claim, there's no right of subrogation. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. If you buy MedPay, MedPay only pays past medical, and I believe you could buy it in coverages up to $10,000. Now, MedPay does not pay actual loss income. It only pays past medical. But listen to this. If you collect $10,000 MedPay, then your own insurance company can seek to get that $10,000 back from the other driver. So in effect, you paid for it, you collected the $10,000 MedPay coverage, and now because you collected it, MedPay or a settlement from a third party, your insurance company is going to want that $10,000 back. And they can do it. Happens all the time. That's why you should buy PIP. They can't come get the $10,000 back. That was $50,000 in my example. If 5 people were hurt bad and they paid out $50,000, there's no subrogation except in one situation. So my recommendation is don't buy MedPay. It is cheaper, but once you pay it out and you collect from the other driver, you got to give the money back. It's a rude awakening. Make sure your agent sells you PIP coverage. Now, make sure when you sign the forms in your insurance agent's office, make sure that you're not waiving PIP coverage. I'm going to take a call. Go ahead, caller. Okay. Nobody on the phone. Now, let's go. PIP and MedPay both generally are very cheap to buy. They protect the driver and any person that's in the driver's vehicle. You pay one fee to cover everybody in the vehicle. I highly recommend that you call your agent tomorrow. If you have MedPay coverage and you don't want them segregating or trying to get that money back from the other driver, buy PIP. If you're going to buy PIP to protect all of your family members and your friends and your guests, buy up to $10,000 PIP coverage. I hope you don't need it, but I can assure you if you get in an accident and you hurt, you got that PIP coverage right there. Now, uninsured motorists. Uninsured motorists now under the new law is the same thing. They're selling at 25 over 50. That means $25,000 over $50,000. Now, uninsured motorist is a coverage that you pay for. And that covers the driver and all of the passengers in the vehicle. Great coverage. Yes, you can save money by cutting out uninsured motorists. But what you've done is you paid money for liability and maybe something else only to protect the people, only to protect you from the people that you might get in an accident with. Do not waive PIP coverage. Do not waive uninsured motorist coverage. Here's the great news. The great news is that the state of Texas says that insurance companies must offer you PIP coverage. They must offer you uninsured motorist coverage. You have to knowingly reject the PIP coverage. You must knowingly have to reject the uninsured motorist coverage. Now, it's not excuse me. It's not mandatory coverage on MedPay. If you don't want it, don't buy it. You probably won't hear anything about MedPay coverage. I know a lot of agents now are talking folks into saving a few dollars by buying MedPay coverage. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Now, uninsured motorist coverage. Basically, you bought coverage for the guy or the person that hit you. Now, it sounds strange, but it allows you to make a claim against your own insurance company to collect the same up to the policy limit damages that you would have had if you made a claim against the other driver who turned out to have no liability insurance. Now, that may change in the future. And what I mean by that is, for years now, the state of Texas has had an idea that at traffic stops, at accidents, whenever a law enforcement officer pulls a vehicle over, they want to ask for either your proof of insurance or do you have proof of financial responsibility. Well, they're still going to do it now. But let me tell you, the state of Texas got money from the Texas legislature to buy a new computer system. People in municipal law and prosecutors and all of those folks who deal with municipal law knew that one day the state of Texas would have an agency set up that the police officer, through a computer or through some means of verification, could check whether or not the driver did in fact have current insurance. Ladies and gentlemen and my viewers, I'm telling you tonight, that system is here. That system of verification of your insurance is ongoing, or it's about to ongo. There are problems with the computer system throughout the 254 counties in the state of Texas. However, there are some places when they stop you and they ask for your driver's license, and then they want to know, do you have insurance or proof of financial responsibility? And you say yes, and you hand him that insurance card, him or her, law enforcement. They can verify that insurance company right on the spot. It's incredible. You know, it used to be you go to court and it was up to the municipal court or the JP court or whatever court you were going to verify that you had insurance coverage. And a lot of times they would call to verify you had the coverage. Well, they're going to be doing that at the traffic stop, at the accident stop. And I can assure you, if that system is connected to that law enforcement vehicle, that they can verify insurance coverage, and you don't have it with you, and they don't verify it, they're going to write you a ticket, well, let's say, for either no proof of financial responsibility or no insurance. Whenever I say no insurance in this program, I really mean no proof of financial responsibility, because that's the wording that it's going to come to. Now, if you have proof, then the officer will give you back your insurance card and say thank you. If he believes you do not have proof, then he will decide whether to write you a citation. I'm going to take a call at this time. Go ahead, caller.
I wanted to know, if you're traveling outside of the state, do the laws of Texas apply in another state as far as this insurance is concerned?
Boy, that's a great question. Stay on the line with me. A lot of times in the past, in my experience, I would get my friends from Louisiana coming to see a ball game or go to the Astrodome, and they would end up getting a ticket in the state of Texas, but they had a Louisiana driver's license and they had Louisiana insurance, and the other way around. I've had a lot of people, including myself in my lifetime, who went to Louisiana and got tickets over there, and I had a Texas driver's license, Texas insurance card. Now, I'm going to answer your question, but you'll never hardly find it in a court. But it's there, and what I'm telling you is real. Most states have agreements. They call them, oh, what's the word? It's on the top of my deal. But anyway, they will give full faith and credit to...
Reciprocity?
Yes, that's it. And it's in the Texas Transportation Code. And they will give full faith and credit to the Louisiana insurance. Now, let me tell you what I used to know about Louisiana insurance since I'm from Louisiana. When we had 20,000 over 40, Louisiana had minimum 10,000 over 20. So it was your question is great. Now listen to this. In the Texas Transportation Code, it says that any vehicle using the highways of the state of Texas that come into Texas, then their policy will automatically go to the limits of the Texas coverage. So if it happened today and the limit was 25 over 50, now I believe Louisiana's minimum coverage is 15 over 30. So if a driver comes into Texas and gets in an accident, then believe it or not, his policy of 15 over 30, if that's the Louisiana coverage he has to automatically provide coverage for 25 over 50. I hope that answered your question. Are you still there, caller?
Yes, thank you very much.
Have a good day. Now, try to find a judge that will one, recognize that the coverage in Louisiana is different from the coverage in Texas, and try to find a Louisiana judge who will recognize that the coverage in Texas is different from the coverage in Louisiana. However, I ran across that one time in my experience, and there was an accident, and there was only 10,000 over 20, and I told the insurance company that wreck happened in Beaumont, and that they had to provide 20,000 over 40. It took a very long time to convince the adjuster. However, the insurance company claim manager finally got involved, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And I give credit to the insurance company. They came across and they provided the coverage under Texas law, which was 2040. Great question. You don't see much of it. You can hardly find no information on it. So that's why we have this program. It's a public affairs, public service program, is to bring you information. And that's what I'm trying to do tonight. I'm going to be talking about a little bit more on insurance, and then we're going to move into accidents and traffic tickets. I want to get back to the system set up for insurance verification. Please understand, pull out that insurance card again. If you got a child driving and they don't have their name on the insurance card, and they stop that child for any reason, no inspection, expired inspection, no registration, expired registration, light bulb burn out, and they want to see that child's name on that insurance card and it's not there, then that child could get a citation for no proof of financial responsibility. Let me tell you the fines on that, and this is very important to you. No proof of financial responsibility. First offense, please understand, first offense, no convictions, no previous convictions. The fine is $175 to $350. Now that's the fine. When I started in municipal court 15 years ago, the court cost used to be 1/3 of the total charge, and the fine was 2/3. So when you add them all together, there was more fine money than there was court cost money. When I retired from the city of Jersey Village last year as a municipal court judge, the court costs was right at or right below or right above $100. So it flip-flopped. 2/3 of the money that municipal courts try to collect on citations and tickets are for court costs and all these extra fees. 1/3 of that is fines. Sooner or later, if the court cost stays around $100 with all the miscellaneous fees, and they add the $200 onto the court cost, then you can readily see that fines for traffic citations are going to be in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 per citation. Now, if you add the $100 on top of the fine for no insurance or no proof of financial responsibility, you got $100 with a minimum of $175. That's $275. Or you take the $100 and you put the $350. That's $450. Someone might be looking at. Now here's the catch. Now they don't tell you this in municipal courts. They really don't. If you don't have the money to pay the traffic judgment, now the traffic judgment would include the fine and the court costs and any other fees that would apply to that judgment, such as could have been a warrant fee, it could have been a no-time payment fee, it could have been all kinds of little fees. But if you can't pay it, tell the judge as many times as you can, as nicely as you can, that you don't have the money to pay that citation, and ask the judge to find you indigent. You might even be so wise as to bring a financial statement to court showing that you have no money in your checking account. You have no money in your savings account. Bring your check stub. Bring any documentation to show that you don't have the money, and respectfully ask that judge to allow you to pay less than $175 in the fine on a no insurance ticket. How many students under the age of 18 who are in high school or in school, not working, get citations for no insurance or no proof of financial responsibility and have no money to pay that? Well, naturally, one parent or the other or both will pay the ticket for their children. That's what happens in most cases. But there are those children out there, or young adults as I call them, under 18, that don't have the money to pay the citation. Come prepared to give the court already a financial statement that you typed up or wrote up. Give it to them. You will find the judge more than happy, unless he's in a bad mood, he or she, to take your documentation and let you work with the prosecutor. You need to tell them that you are indigent, there's no way that you can pay that fine. Certainly I believe the court would give you a payout plan. Certainly I believe that you could ask for community service. Some cities are so big or so small that they don't have people to regulate or to watch or manage the community service programs. Some people nowadays ask the judge for permission to sit it out in jail. There was a time, if you sat in jail for a minute, they would give you credit for $50 jail time credit. I recently, through my experience on a citation for someone who was in jail for 3 days. He went in at night, spent the next day, and on the third day, through my experience, the judge was asked to allow jail time credit. And the judge, and I'm not going to say which court, said that you had to serve 24 hours to get credit for 1 day. And the judge was very nice, knocked off $100 for serving 24 hours for 1 day. You might want to check the law on that point. Jail time credit. Want to do a little research, jail time credit. You might check how many hours you have to spend in jail to get credit, and how much credit would the court allow you to have for spending that jail time. I will tell you this, the court will tell you up front, and the court will make that part of the judgment, that if you wanted to spend jail time, he or she would tell you how many hours you needed to spend in jail and how much you would get credit for. And the experience that I gave you a little while ago, a whole day got us $100 credit, so $200 was knocked off the total cost. Now, accidents. I'm talking about car accidents, truck accidents. I'm talking about 18-wheeler accidents. I'm talking about any accident that's defined as a motor vehicle accident, truck included, and 18-wheeler accidents. Now, liability coverage on the vehicle. Now, I'd like to give you an example. The mother-in-law comes over to your house and the husband is sick. So the mother-in-law says, come on, I'm going to drive you to the doctor or to the hospital. So the mother-in-law is driving the other person's vehicle. He is the owner, but now he's in the passenger seat. There is a very bad wreck, or you could say there was a minor wreck. Let's start with the minor wreck first. Whose coverage would apply to that accident? Let's say that the driver of that vehicle we're talking about is at fault in the accident. Clear liability, no question about it. And the passenger says to the driver, I don't want my insurance to pay for it because my rates will go up. And the driver says, well, I don't want my insurance company to pay for it because my rates will go up as well. How do you normally determine which insurance policy would apply to that wreck? Both the driver and the passenger had liability coverage through separate insurance companies. Both of them had their own coverage. As a general rule, and there are always exceptions, and exclusions and other reasons for denying coverage, but coverage, liability coverage, follows the vehicle. It might not matter in a very bad accident because both the driver and the passenger's liability coverage are jointly and severably liable. What that means is they will both pay in the end up to the limits of their policy. Now, which one will go first? I believe, and I submit to my audience, that the coverage follows the motor vehicle. So in the example that I gave you of liability coverage, the passenger's insurance would be primary and the driver's insurance would be secondary, but they would both be liable for the accident up to the policy limits. Now, you know, that sounds good, that sounds fair, but what if the driver doesn't want to call in the claim to her insurance? What if the driver says, you call it in first since coverage follows the vehicle? Well, if I was asked, through my experience, I would tell the passenger to call his insurance agent and report the accident and say that he was a passenger, and to say that the driver was driving him to the hospital or to the doctor's office with permission, and make the loss report that has to go to the insurance company. If I was asked, I would tell the driver to do the same thing. Both coverages that might be applicable to a serious accident should be called in immediately to the insurance agent. Now, the problem's going to arise what if it's a fender bender and there's only $890 worth of property damage coverage? And the driver says, I'm not calling it in. And the passenger says, well, you caused the accident. You call it in. I don't want to call it in, Well, a good situation kind of turned into an awkward situation. Which coverage would apply that $980 claim? Well, I submit to my viewers that coverage follows the motor vehicle. So somehow, with some persuasion, we have to get the the passenger to call his insurance agent and tell him that someone was driving the vehicle and make the claim. That is very common. That happens all the time. So you might consider that factor when you ask someone to drive your vehicle with permission and there's a whole car full of people. Think about that. Now, I want to talk to you about accidents. Everybody will say to you, well, you're required to have proof of financial responsibility. And in Texas, you are. But we know that there are plenty of drivers out there that do not have liability insurance coverage. Now, in the old days, not too long ago, a couple of years ago, a lot of folks would go to all of these insurance places, and what they wanted to do was pay for their 6 months' worth of liability coverage by making monthly payments. Well, for a very long time, that happened. And what we learned through the municipal experience of many years, 15 to be exact, is that a lot of times people don't pay that monthly premium on time, and the policy is automatically canceled, and the notice never gets there on time to let the people know that you didn't get the payment there on time, therefore the policy is canceled. That became a huge problem for people carrying liability insurance. It was a convenience to the people who were permitted to pay monthly payments. It was very much a convenience for those folks, for the working folks who needed time to pay by the month. Now, because it created so many problems, and because insurance policies were being canceled on 30-day notice. Excuse me, I'm going to turn this phone off. I thought I had it off, but let me turn that off. It became a very serious problem. So what's happening in the insurance market today, and let me say, some people might still be paying by the month because they know the insurance agent and they've been with the insurance company for a very long time. But most folks, like me, I buy coverage every 6 months, and I am permitted to pay 1/2 of the premium for 6 months plus $2, and then at a certain date I pay the other half plus $2. Well, I can't get to pay it every month, but I do get to pay it the 6 months twice during that time, and that helps me. It helps. I own 3 vehicles. It would help other people out there in the audience. Accidents, no insurance, a very big problem in the state of Texas. Will the new insurance verification program, 4 companies involved, or 4 agencies of the state of Texas. 1 is the Texas Department of Insurance. 2 is the Texas Department of Public Safety. 3 is the Texas Department of, and I have it right here, the other one is Public Safety, Department of Transportation, and the new Department of Information Resources. Now, you can see that there is a very serious attempt in the state of Texas to make sure that all drivers driving have proof of financial responsibility, because that's what the program is called. They spent a lot of money setting it up. It took a very long time to work out the kinks. It's in the process now, and they're still working out the kinks. So drivers, beware. Children of parents, beware. Elderly folks who are driving that forget to renew their insurance, beware. Everyone who's driving now, beware. Make sure you have current proof of financial responsibility, because you're going to be looking at a fine at least from $175 up to $350. Now, if you are one of those drivers that already have approximately 2 convictions for no proof of insurance or no proof of financial responsibility, let me tell you what the fine is up to. $1,000. $1,000. Now, can a municipal court collect the fine, say, over $500? That would be up to the city attorney, but more likely that if a city found that a driver had 1 or 2 or more prior convictions for no proof of financial responsibility, then that charge could be sent downtown and handled appropriately by another court. I do not believe that municipal courts will be trying to collect a fine up to $1,000. However, courts are now checking to see if you have a prior judgment on no proof of financial responsibility. Because this is a public service program, I certainly am winding down. I certainly want to thank this channel, this public channel, for allowing me to come on to share with you my experience, my training, and my learning from insurance, especially as it relates to drivers today under new conditions. And finally, I want to say this. It won't be very long that they will take the technology from the red light cameras, where they put the cameras at the intersection. They're already there. Well, they'll have those on the freeways and the beltways. And pretty soon they'll know how fast you travel from one section of the freeway to the next section. They will know through the computer if you have proof of liability insurance. They'll know if you have inspection and registration. Folks, I got to tell you, stay current on your proof of financial responsibility. Make sure everybody's covered. And folks, make sure that all of your family members are covered. Make sure that anybody you let drives your vehicle has liability insurance and certainly has the proof of coverage in their billfold. Another thing, under the example I gave, if someone else is driving your vehicle and they left their insurance at home and they get a no proof of financial responsibility ticket and they try to use the coverage on the vehicle, remember, coverage follows the vehicle. And let's just say they go home, look for their insurance company, and it was canceled. There's no coverage. They're going to drag the owner to court because you have to help prove that there was coverage on your vehicle. It's just a waste of time. You may sit in court for hours. You may have to go back 3 or 4 times. Make sure you verify that anybody drives your vehicle is covered with proof of financial responsibility. I would encourage you, in closing down this program, we're at the last few minutes. I really enjoyed doing this program. I hope that I have brought you information about your insurance card. I do recommend that everybody buy liability insurance coverage. I certainly recommend to those folks who can afford it to buy up to 10,000 PIP coverage. I certainly, if you don't want PIP coverage, buy MedPay coverage. And I certainly recommend to my audience that if you can buy uninsured motorist coverage, that you buy uninsured motorist coverage, because those are the two types of coverage that will protect the driver and the passengers in the vehicle. I look forward to doing another program on this television station. I thank the television station for the opportunity to come and exchange and share my experience with my audience. I hope that you learn something about accidents and insurance coverage. We're going to be talking about, next program will be very interesting. It's how to handle your own traffic ticket in traffic court. Unbelievable an experience, and I certainly know how to tell you in certain ways how to handle your own traffic ticket without a lawyer, and what to expect when you go to court on the first hearing, the second hearing, which could be a pretrial conference, and the third hearing, which could be a judge trial, and the fourth hearing, which could be a jury trial. So stay tuned next week. Keep watching this channel, and I certainly thank my audience for the calls that we got tonight. The questions I got were very excellent questions. I hope I answered the questions to the best of the audience. Thank you, sir. If you have any calls, I'm going to just kind of sit here and say good night. Thank you.